Good evening, everyone. It's a joy to be preaching my first Christmas Eve sermon this evening, and it's also a joy to have my parents, Dan and Joy, here. A very special blessing for us. Some of you may remember on the Sunday after Thanksgiving a few weeks ago when the temperature and weather conditions here and in Chicago, where my seminary is, were the same. They were 40 degrees. It was 40 degrees and raining. And I said, if we could work on getting the weather a little bit balmier for Christmas when my family's here, that would be really great. And it appears that I have gotten my wish, so at least for now. So thanks. Good job, Calvary. So there are these caves in the Palestinian fields where the shepherds used to keep watch. They're limestone caves, and they're built naturally into the landscape. I saw them this past June when I traveled to Israel and Palestine. There is more development and construction in that area now than there used to be. But still, when you're standing above the caves at this scenic, historic overlook and looking out into the rolling hills of the open land and the great big sky, it's pretty easy to imagine those angels fitting right in with the scenery, especially at night, singing "Glory" in the heavens with the glory of the Lord shining all around them. And I wonder how often the shepherds used their caves and for what purpose. The story says the shepherds were living in the fields, so maybe the caves were their homes. I also wonder whether they were in the caves when the angel appeared to them. But whether or not they were, when the angel appears, the shepherds are terrified. And I don't blame them at all. It's the middle of the night. And even though I don't know much about herding sheep, I'm guessing that it must have been relatively quiet on the job. Even today, the majority of people are asleep on the night shift. I've grown to have this deeper appreciation and understanding of night shift work in the past year and a half as I've served a summer as a hospital chaplain on call at nights, and as my younger brother, Dan, has recently been working on night shift work as a film editor. It's kind of comforting to me to know that when I sleep, someone is keeping watch. There were these quiet nights at the hospital last summer, and quiet nights at hospitals are good. But when I watched nurses sit behind their computers without much to do, and security guards struggle to keep their eyes open at 5 a.m. after standing for hours, I sometimes wondered if it got a little lonely and tiring being awake while so much of the world was asleep. I still wonder that. And whether you work the night shift or not, sometimes loneliness, frustration, and tiredness just happens. These feelings could come on because of a hard homework problem or a problem in school or a job task that you just can't seem to figure out. A struggle within a professional or personal relationship, or a personal struggle within yourself, or the loss of a loved one. You know, when I feel lonely and tired, or even terrified of the struggles that I face, I feel like I want to just crawl in a cave sometimes. And I'm going to guess that sometimes some of you feel that way too. I don't know what your cave is made out of, but my cave is made out of blankets and my couch or my bed. Inside it, there's usually a bit too much junk food, like cookies or candy or chips. If I'm in an okay mood, but I just need some time to recharge, there's a pop culture magazine in the cave. If I'm in a not as okay mood, there's definitely got to be a box of tissues in there. Sometimes I think it's okay to be in the cave for a little while. That time in there helps me think about where I am and where I am going. Just like the time in the caves and the shepherds' fields might have provided them a space for a break to eat and drink and get rest and get strength for the rest of the night. But there was something special happening outside of the caves that night. Something was shining around the shepherds, something happening that made the shepherds want to come out, to go to Bethlehem with haste. And the kind of funny thing is that the shepherds are the people that you might least expect to get such important news first. It's the middle of the night when all of the rulers with a lot of great wealth and earthly power are probably asleep. Shepherds work with sheep and other animals, as we saw the children bring up, so they probably smell pretty bad. And we don't even know any of the shepherds' names. But it is to them that God makes the birth of the Christ child known. To smelly, unnamed shepherds in the middle of the night. This is how God works. God comes to us in ways that we would least expect. The same God that we confess to be maker of heaven and earth is the same God that becomes this vulnerable baby, dependent upon its parents and others for care, protection, and sustenance. God comes in vulnerability because God is about coming to us, being with us, and loving us, even in our most vulnerable moments. And God comes close. Just like the angel comes close to the shepherds, just like the shepherds go to see the newborn baby up close, just like Mary treasures those words of the stories of the shepherds and holds them close to ponder in her heart, so God comes close to bring us good news, to be present among us in a way we can hold, even in our hearts. God comes close, so that means God is all around us. In times of joyful color and light, like we see here in the sanctuary tonight, and also in times of loneliness, tiredness, and fear, God is right here with us. I had my own Christmas miracle this morning. I went to go see one of Calvary's parishioners who's in rehab. Her name is Barbara. And I got to give her this little gift that the kids in the Club 4, 5, 6 that I work with, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, had made over their Advent retreat. They had gotten to go to the Family Dollar and pick out a few little gifts like candles and air fresheners and decorate them in these little bags and prepare them to give to the residents of the rehab center. And I brought one in to Barbara, and she said, "Oh, it's so beautiful. I just want to keep looking at it. It's so beautiful." And I said, "Well, let's open it and see what it is." And we opened the bag, and the gift that she received was this little glass angel. And it said, "May peace, love, and joy come to you this Christmas." And I tell you guys, we could not wipe that smile off her face. God comes close at Christmas. So some of you may find this hard to believe, particularly my parents, but I got out of bed at about 5:15 a.m. yesterday, and I came over to church to come help Pastor Phil and other volunteers here cook breakfast for the homeless men who this congregation hosts on Tuesday nights in the winter months through the Room in the Inn program. Anyone who has worked in a kitchen with Pastor Phil before knows that if you're working in the kitchen with Pastor Phil, you stay pretty busy, especially when it's made-to-order omelet morning. But cooking breakfast for those who are not always able to sit down at a table and eat a good home-cooked meal is a pretty good motivation to get up and keep going. So I knew it would be a busy and early morning, but I didn't know that when I walked into the lower parking lot yesterday morning afterwards at about 7:15 a.m., I didn't know that I would see one of the most breathtaking and beautiful sunrises I've seen in a long time. I actually went to sit out there by our playground on our gaga ball pit out there with my cup of coffee to watch the sun rise for a few minutes. See, God surprises us. And it can be as simple as a beautiful sunrise, or as bold as a multitude of angels in the sky, or as simple, again, as a newborn small baby born God incarnate for the sake of the world. God surprises us with signs of an overflowing love that reminds us of this loving relationship that we have with God. It's a love that can carry us with Jesus through the places where he will go, to form relationships with those who were cast out, to carry his cross one day to his crucifixion and death on top of a rocky mountain, and with him to bust out of that cave of the tomb into new life forever with God. So come out of your caves. Do not be afraid. Go with haste. Peace and love have come close. Amen.